رأيت تشردا وليس وجهة آمنة غير هبة. سألتها: تسلفيني مخدة؟ لم أكن منذ الليلة تلك ماضي قد لمست أحدا غير مواعيدي مع صاحباتي اللواتي لم أرهن طوال بضعة أسابيع أو بضعة أشهر. كنت أمتنع عن تقبيلهن وأكتفي بتركهن يدعون قبلاتهن على خدي، حتى جسدي لم ألمسه. كنت أغض عيني عن الأخريات كلما جاورني جسدا أو مر بي. كنت منحكة من الخوف، مفسدة على حواسي ومرعوبة مما قد اكتشفه بجسدي، إضافة إلى ما كشفته داي. احتجت إلى أن أقترب من حبة، أن ألمسها، وأن تكشف لي أن ثمة مكان في لم يتسخ بعد، وأن شهوتي الفائتة ليست نقطة خلل في كيمياء جسدي وستدفعني لارتكاب الخطيئة 2 و3. I was bent on distraction. There was nowhere safe to turn but Hiba. Can you loan me a pillow? I asked her. Ever since that night of mine with Dai, I had not touched anyone in any way, except for those cursory handshakes that my meetings at the Hassaniya demanded, or when I had plans to meet up with one of my friends, someone I hadn't seen for a few weeks or months. I held myself back, not kissing them, and I made do with letting them plant their kisses on my cheeks. Even my own body I didn't touch. I averted my eyes from other women whenever anyone came near. I was completely drained and exhausted, simply by my fear. I closed down my senses. I was terrified of what I might discover in my body, what else I might find in addition to what Dai had already revealed there. I needed to be near to Heba. I needed to touch her, and I needed her to disclose to me that there was a place in myself that had not yet become soiled, that the cravings which had passed through my body were not a flaw in my physical chemistry that would lead me to commit the offense a second and a third time. I needed Hiba's body to be close by, and then I needed to find that nothing had changed in what I felt toward it, or in my ability to look at it without inframing it in sensuous physicality, to find that I could brush against it without the blaze of my lust flaring up. Hiba was in a state of noisy excitement, showing off her new possessions, and so she completely forgot to answer my question. She finally managed to laugh and said, "Bring your own pillow, or else pay me for it in advance. Nothing is free, gorgeous." I laughed just as smoothly in response. "Ya halwa inti, speak for yourself, gorgeous. Then you're selling me the pillow, not renting it out." And another passage here. Only occasionally did my family assess me on the basis of my studies, my volunteer work, and whether I was well behaved or in a good frame of mind. My uncle and his wife, however, appraised their Hiba according to anything and everything that would enhance her opportunities in life. And according to them, life was summed up entirely for a girl in marrying, and, as they would always say, my Lord protect her with his covering hand. Thus, Hiba's value plummeted every time her weight increased a few kilos, or whenever she stopped accepting invitations to weddings and other social occasions for a while. It had all become harder since her decision to stop her studies after successfully finishing her first year of high school. At first, her parents paid little attention. It didn't seem to bother them. In recent years, though, university study had newly become a near universal condition, that needs work, on the list of desiderata for any respectable marriage, and so they wanted her to continue. However, their attempts made no headway in convincing her to return to her seat in the high school classroom. She would come up with excuses. She claimed she could not possibly sit at the same tables as children. Anyway, she said, her mind had gone too lethargic to be awoken by the riddles of mathematics and the enigmas of grammar. And this is just a conversation between the narrator and Hiba. "God would be treating me really well if Hedaya were to be pulled from my shadow," I said. "Does she annoy you?" "I'm tired of the whole thing. I'm bored. It's all absurd." It isn't boredom, though. It's the overwhelming fatigue brought on by wasted efforts. For every single occasion, we concocted the same arrangements, the hollow glamour and pomp of weddings, and the gloom at funerals, the words of presentation to which no one listens and whose sense no one understands, the faces that never change, our closed and narrow meetings where nothing new is ever brought to the table. As soon as Hidea would demarcate the event's theme or focus and parcel out the roles that each of us would play, we would claim to be hugely busy taking care of extremely serious tasks. Every new idea was a locus of doubt and suspicion. Everything that overstepped some boundary ended up in the wastebasket. I do not understand what we are doing here then. People won't accept it, were the doom-laden words that would overpower the simple wooden dais on which we acted out our naive and repetitive thoughts. Fear God by fearing to wrong his people, we would hear, and the pronouncement would flatten our voices before they even came out of our throats. Beware of the zones of evil, I would hear, sending blindness into my eyes and uncertainty into my heart. I was completely exasperated with Hidea, to the point of getting a little bit mean and sneaky in my dealings with her. What happened was that in some newspaper I found a report on the suicide rate in the country. I read it to her. The number of cases had reached 500, and a third of those were from Qatif. 3/4 were young women, most of whom were legal minors living in very reduced circumstances. Was this not a problem that deserved somebody's attention, I asked. This is a Husseiniya, she responded, and not a social services center or a volunteer center where people can call in their emergencies for free. The utter scorn in her response stunned me, especially since this wasn't her usual style at all. I kept silent, but she made a bad situation even worse. She added more moisture to the clay, as we say. 2 days later, my mother was telling me about Hidea's phone call. Hidea complained about me to my mom, grumbling about the way I did things, about my precipitate ways, and my desire to change the world with a snap of my fingers. Thanks.